Welcome everybody to the Twin Ring Motegi raceway here in Japan. We are just getting underway with our qualifying. We're about 4 minutes in. We still have about 20 minutes left of qualifying for the iFormula League F2 series. And we, myself and Eli Ritchie here, are going to get underway with some of our qualifying action we have right now. Eli, how you doing today?
Oh, doing really good, Alex. Really excited to be here at Twin Ring Motegi with you, and excited for another great day of racing with our drivers driving this Formula Renault 3.5 car in our F2 series.
Yep, yeah, we have very, very long track. We have times of 1:40. Looking like that's going to be our pretty steady time frame there. And it is a big long track, a lot of long straights, a lot of hairpins, not too many chicanes or looping turns, but a lot of speed here. A lot of complex corners in some late apexes and some double apexes in turns 1, 2, and then in turns 3, 4 as well. It's going to be a fun one.
It sure is. It's going to be a great one. This track is a really interesting one, too. I know we traveled to a lot of really great tracks over the course of our series and our season, and this one is no different. It took approximately 10 years from the time of its conception to the time that it was finally completed. It's the brainchild of Honda. It's been used as a way to showcase their performance automotive efforts over the years. Really interesting history on this one, Alex. There was a point in time actually where they had an excess of budget, and that allowed them to build all the stadium seating that we see here today. That's allowed them to host a number of international events over the years, including their first NASCAR event in 1998.
Yeah, that's some really interesting information there. It's really cool to see that NASCAR has been here. Something that you wouldn't think to see in Japan.
That's right. It was an interesting turn of events for them. They had originally intended this to be a road course to support MotoGP racing and to showcase again their IndyCar series that they were working on at the time with the release of their kart system. But after a visit to the United States and seeing the excitement around oval racing and specifically NASCAR, Honda felt that it would be a great addition to this circuit, and so the circuit now has both an oval and a road course at the time that it was finally completed, and both have been used in multiple international series. In fact, IndyCar raced here until 2011, at which point there was an earthquake that damaged the track and some of its facilities significantly enough that they had to shut it down for a while to do repairs.
That's unfortunate to hear, but we have it in our iRacing simulation here, so we are able to race it in perfect condition, and our drivers are really pushing the limits of this track. Chris Byram sitting on our provisional pole right now at a 135.7, but we have a lot of competition that's going to be pushing up behind him, just like we saw Ivan Beauchamp pushes Chris Byram down to second, and Beauchamp now sitting on provisional pole. But we can have any one of these drivers. Everybody's got the skill and the know-how of this track. Any one of them can really take pole today. Beauchamp's really quick. Byram's really quick. Cologne showing that he is super quick today. We always have Grabowski up front. Gutnick is normally up front. And obviously our championship leader, Lewis Archer, and our past couple race winners, Lauren Tillsley, also super quick. So out of our field right now, we have 13 drivers in the field that are registered for the race. We can have 8 out of the 13, show up and take the pole.
That's right. And these drivers are all extremely competitive with each other over the course of the week. Of course, we're honored enough and able to watch the practices and speak with the drivers. They're all very quick this week. I think we'll see times that are relatively close to each other. And we should see some more exciting racing between our leaders this week, those being Archer and, Tillsley's been a real competitor recently. We see Grabowski getting up front pretty often, although he's struggled the last few races. And of course, there's always Bowcamp that continues to push both Archer and Byram through the course of our series, and it's just getting more and more competitive, more practiced as the season goes on.
Yep, and as we see Lauren Tillsley taking the pole spot from Chris Byram, who is sitting in second. Again, they're all just swapping that top spot, and we're seeing Lewis Archer's on a lap with 2 purple sectors. We can jump over to him, see how he's doing here, sitting at 4th currently, but only, I mean, the top 4 are all within, one 1/10 of each other. I mean, that's as close to a tenth as you get with 99 100ths of a second. But those top 4 are all within a 1/10 of a second of each other as of right now, and I'm sure it's going to stay that way all the way until the end.
That's right, and that's a matter of a couple feet, in the wrong position in an apex, or potentially just having not quite the throttle response out of an exit that you might want. These are very, very minimal differences in their driving, and just the smallest thing can make a huge difference in getting that pole position. And there you go, Archer just did it.
Yep, he takes over as the pole sitter right now, and we have Lauren Tillsley on her outlap, inadvertently giving Alex Gutnick a little bit of a tow, as we saw back there. Ooh, and Archer slides out. Gutnick right behind him. Tillsley right behind Gutnick. We'll see Gutnick, if he can improve from his 1.8 seconds off the pace as of right now.
I'm just really waiting here for Shegetman and then Bowman to set a time. Both of them are extremely competitive. I'm really wondering what they're going to be able to do today.
Yep. We see Cristiano Shegetman super fast in the F3 series that we run on Sundays. And with him being super fast in that series, you would think it'd translate right on over to the F2s. But, I mean, these cars are so much different than the F3s. The 3.5 has a much more powerful engine, but it also has tons more downforce than we see in the F3s. So the F3s rely on a lot more mechanical grip with tires, camber and caster and all that stuff, and the biggest thing is your springs and your control arms on the F3s, whereas the F3.5s, the Formula Renaults that we see here, they are a lot more downforce driven. They have bigger wings, bigger flaps that will keep these guys on the track. And Gutnick goes around, does a little pirouette, gets going again. But you can see.
That's right. These cars are pretty different, Alex. I mean, these Renault cars have upwards of 500 plus horsepower. It's quite a significant change from the Formula 3 cars.
Yeah, the Formula 3s, I think it's about half the power behind the engine that the Formula Renault 3.5s have. So the only difference is, like I said, that really high downforce, it really sucks the car to the track for the Renaults. But you would think that twice as much power would have twice as much of an impact on your time. But between the F3s and the Renault 3.5s, we only see about a 10-second difference on a track this large. So it's not a unfathomable amount of difference. It's really only 10 seconds over almost a minute and a half to a minute and 3/4 lap.
That's right. The place it does make a significant difference is in the throttle response and the care with which you need to put your foot on that throttle coming out of an exit of a turn. I know we've seen many times people getting a little too hot on the throttle in these F2 cars and spinning them on exit. This, of course, is extremely good training for the next level up, the F1 cars, which have even more power, and you really do have to be very, very smooth in your inputs. This car is a great stepping point between F3 and F1.
Yep, yeah, it's right in that middle ground. I mean, the F1 cars that we see in iRacing, the McLaren, the IR01, and the old school Williams, they all have tons of horsepower. And they have so much just go out of a turn. Kind of like the FR 3.5s, they have all that downforce, so it's really like the big brother of the Renault 3.5. So like I said, it's a great in-between step to go from that more mechanical grip to the higher downforce and wing management of the FR 3.5. And we just have a little bit of a loose end there, like we said, getting on that throttle a little too hard in the FR 3.5s. That's why this is that next step. You're going to have that in the F1 cars, that iRacing has to offer. We're going to see that, control get way, way more under control, and way more, how do I want to put it, just a regular thing here in the league as our drivers develop and they get used to that. I can't just stomp on the gas like an F3. I have to, feather it. I have to go into and check out my my throttle mapping to see, how am I going to have my throttle? Is it going to be a punch right to the tires, or is it going to be a, gradual rev up and get my tires going? Just because there's so much control these cars have over every aspect, like I said, from the wings to the throttle to the mechanical grip. And then the F1 gets even more in depth, so we're looking forward to when the league is able to expand to that.
Yeah, one of the things I love about these cars is the sound. The V8 naturally aspirated engine just has such an intoxicating sound to it. Some people even say that this is what a modern F1 car should sound like. Of course, modern F1 cars are V6 turbocharged, so they do have a very different note to them. This really does harken back to the old days of racing, where it was a naturally aspirated big block engine. We see it here in the Renaults, and I can tell you, being inside of these, the sound is incredible, just incredible.
Yep. Yeah, the sound is great while you're in the car. As you guys hear it go by every time. It is a great sound to hear when these cars are going by at full speed. And we can actually ride on board. Let's find a car that's about to go over the finish line, and we'll take you guys through a lap here at Twin Ring on board with Cristiano Schegemann. As you can see, we're coming into turns 3 and 4 here. Turn 3, you have to take a really wide apex, get really wide on your exit. You're going to shift over to the left side of the track, and you're going to start hitting those brakes at around the 50-meter mark. Take it wide. Cristiano takes a little shallow there, and you see he gets a little grass, not so great on the exit.
Didn't mean to do that, man. My bad.
You can hear that great engine sound just revving up, coming through this really long straight on the right. Gonna hit the brakes, turn in, try and get wide off to the left, and then let that downforce carry you. Just stomp on the gas here. At the 50-meter mark, hit those brakes. A little bit wider than apex there. Cristiano could have gotten a little bit cleaner of a stop there. At the 50-meter mark, you're going to again hit the brakes really hard, try and hit that apex. Just want to be hitting that curb on the left as you exit. And as we see here, that sun is going to be killer today, coming down this long straight. Down the hill we go, slamming on the brakes, getting down to about second, third gear. Carry it wide. You can really go off to the right there, a lot wider than Cristiano had just there. The track limits don't limit you. You can go all the way out to those cones. You can get your right wheels off the track on those cones. And then once again, here we go down the straight, hitting a late apex, and you're going to want to hit the second apex is what you're aiming for, not that first apex. And here we go back down the second straight here. But it's just such a fast, fun track to watch these guys on.
Now, Alex, one of the interesting things about racing is there are track limits. Now, they're different for every track. Every track enforces, off tracks differently and have different track bounds. How do the drivers go about feeling out the track and finding where those limits are? How are they doing that? When are they doing that?
It's just practice. Honestly, it's you get on the track during the week, and then you just drive. You drive. And the hardest thing is, finding that little bit of balance between how far can I push it, how like as we see Alex Chong going off the track here, off in the Lumos old livery here. You know, he essentially what he just did there. You'll do that 100 times in practice, and you get used to it turn by turn by turn, and it's just time. You put more and more and more time into it, and you'll see the guys that, you know, the drivers that can put that more time into it, they feel out. You know, can I push off to the right here? You know, can I? Yeah, obviously, there's like limits of grass and curb that are going to be, you know, you don't want to go into the grass. You don't want to hit a curb that sticks up 6 inches out of the ground with these cars. But there are areas like we're going to see here coming up right before the last chicane that, you know, you can swing really wide into a turn entry. We see these kind of track limits at tracks like Monza and Spa, where there's just a lot of room, a lot of space, and you know, some of these turns have some big runoff areas, and that's part of just your practice and your pushing. As we see that right area where those cones are, you'll see Chong go way out there, and you can touch those cones. Those cones are not off track, and the only way you're going to know that is in practice when you're checking, seeing where your track limits are. It's, you know, just pushing and pushing and pushing.
That's right, and that particular turn, I mean, you can get right up on that wall under the bridge there, can you not?
Yep, yeah, you can get right up on the wall. Let's see if we have Louis Cologne coming around right now. Louis Archer, he's on the backstretch. He's our fastest driver, and you'll see him, I am sure, use that 100% of the track.
Sorry, it's okay, I'm not on a flying lap.
We'll follow Louis Archer here and jump onto his gyro cam. And he's getting his tires warm right now, coming into turn 5. And we have our slight right on turn 6, and you can just listen to that engine sounding really good. He's letting his drivers by, so he doesn't get in the way. Very courteous of other drivers on the track, just like we like to see. But the CUDA Works car here running the Mercedes-Benz engine. We have some CUDA fans in the audience. We have some Turning Point fans in the audience cheering on their team. Keep it going, guys. Let these drivers know that they have some support behind them. So we have Archer coming up. This is one of the more fun straights. Coming down this hill, you really have to stomp on the brakes, and you'll see Lewis hitting the brakes probably at around that 50-meter mark and throwing it into this turn. And this is where we're going to see him. He'll cut way over to the right. Watch him. Almost touches the wall, touches that last cone, gets really wide, and then throws it left, throws it right, accelerates out of that turn, just holding it on the track. And that's what we're going to see. That is going to be the thing that makes it or breaks it going down that home stretch there.
Now, Twin Ring Motegi has really a few primary straights. This is where we're going to see DRS employed for passing, for catching up. They get 8 total presses of DRS during the course of the race. DRS, of course, standing for drag reduction system. It modifies the attack angle of the rear spoiler and allows for a reduction in overall drag and thus an increase in speed. And we will see, a significant speed increase, I think upwards of 15 miles per hour, which of course will allow these drivers to travel much quicker for a short period of time, and it is really good for overtakes and passing. It's something that we see introduced in this series and then carried into the F1 in further fashion.
Yep, yeah, the F1 cars in iRacing, McLaren MP430 has the drag reduction system, like you were saying. The IR01 does not, and the Williams, older Toyota, does not. That was before the drag reduction system was put into place. And the current F1 cars, they are required to be within a second of the car in front of them and be in those drag reduction zones. And we see Archer coming way wide. See if he can improve on his time. As of right now, he'll get across the line, be able to put in another lap here, but that will probably be his last lap as he puts down a 136.055. Bowski coming across the line here as well. Let's see if he improves on his time. Currently 3/4 of a second back from the pole sitter. And that's a beautiful car right there. He has that white livery. Ooh, and he just goes a little bit wide. And that's unfortunate. Let's see if he can get by. Yeah, he will be able to get another lap in as long as he has the fuel for it. Daniel Thomas not far behind him. And this turn, you got to throw it in on this turn.
And now, what do you mean by throw it in, Alex? Explain that for our audience.
So throwing it in, it kind of hard to explain, but you're turning the car a little earlier than you normally would, hitting the apex a little early, so then your car is coming out at high speed on the release of the turn, but it's relying on that grip and that downforce so much that you just have to trust that the car is going to make that turn and that it's going to stick the landing, because if you don't trust it and you don't throw it in like that, then you're going to have to correct and slow down, and that will be the difference between a pole sitter and the guy sitting in second or third, is that little bit more that couple 100ths, as we're seeing. We're only a tenth from Chris Byram to Lewis Archer right now for first and second. So that will be the make or break for some of these guys in the laps, is just being able to throw the car into the turn and make it stick.
I mean, the fastest drivers here are the ones that are smart, with a lot of racecraft knowledge, that have practiced, and also those that are brave enough to take those chances, to trust the car to really throw it into the turn and really hit that throttle to get maximum speed at the apex coming out of the turns. Yep. And it does take bravery. This is a car that requires bravery.
Yep, and we see Grabowski again a little hard on the throttle. So if Gutnick and Gutnick going off. Tillsley, the only one on track. You'll see her come way wide. So that's a instance where she just threw it in a little too hard, and she didn't get the exit that she wanted on the last turn. But that should be it for qualifying. Let's pull up our qualifying results once they are posted here. The drivers normally have about 2 minutes after that final 25-minute mark hits to complete their final lap, and it looks like all of our drivers are in the pits at this moment. So once we hit that 27-minute mark, we'll have a 5-minute warm-up period, and then after that 5-minute warm-up period, get used to that fuel being in the tank. We'll see a big start here with our 13 drivers, and they're going to be fighting. All these drivers are going to feel that slipstream throughout this whole track. It's a very fast track. And like I said before, lots of straights. That slipstream and that DRS system is going to be able to keep these cars fairly close together.
Yes, it will. I just want to comment on how wonderful it is to have platforms like iRacing, so that we can enjoy tracks all over the world, enjoy racing that, really does take us to exciting international locations, and offers us a variety of places to drive. It's such a wonderful platform our drivers are taking advantage of here. And, we just want to invite others to get out here on track with us. If you're interested in racing F2 or F3, please look us up. Get out on track with us. We're always looking for new drivers to join us and get out to these wonderful, exciting, internationally diverse tracks.
Yep. Yeah. The really cool thing about iRacing is you have some things that you might not ever really realize, that you can race any car anywhere that they have a track. So you're not limited to running NASCAR on oval all the time. You could run NASCAR on a road course that you never see NASCAR at, overseas in Japan, in a space where you're not normally going to see a Formula V car. We've seen it at the uphill challenge at Mount Washington, I believe it is. The big thing is they like doing soapbox races there in the Week 13 official. So you see some cars that are a little out of place and some tracks that are just a lot of fun. You can race supercars on ovals. You can do short track ovals with Formula One cars. I've even seen a couple people have some fun with some Formula One cars on dirt, which is just obscene. But iRacing gives you that platform. And not only the platform, but it is a full style simulation, and it gives you the closest thing to driving the real car as possible without actually hopping in the car. And it's just a great way for, like you said, some of these guys to get into racing that might not be able to afford a real race car and might not have the ability to go and travel the country doing racing. It's a really cool aspect of esports that not everybody knows about, not everybody can take advantage of, but we're seeing more and more people get into it and a bigger crowd forming around it.
Absolutely. I mean, what an exciting time we live in. The technology allows motorsport enthusiasts around the world to gather together, no matter where they are, what time it is, and to join in this wonderful sport that we all love so much.
Yep. Yeah, it really allows a lot of people to get in. Like I said, that they can't really enjoy it and get into it. I mean, F1 is such a huge sport for or all around the world, and now it's starting to get into the U.S., which is why we see, our UK drivers here, Lewis Archer, Chris Byram, Lauren Tillsley, all in the UK and Ireland section here. Ivan Boukamp, he is in Holland, and we have Stephen Grabowski, Lewis Cologne from the U.S., Daniel Thomas, Alex Chong, Alex Gutnick, all in the Canadian branch, Rob Slider in the U.S. branch, Cristiano Schegeman from Holland as well, and Steve Bunting and Ben Bowman both over across the pond from us where we're sitting in the UK. So it's really just a really cool thing that we can bring all these different people from all around the world together to enjoy a sport and enjoy racing on all different aspects of this simulation. And it's just technology now is allowing us to do this is incredible.
It is absolutely exciting. Just really a wonderful time to be alive, especially if you are a motorsport enthusiast. We have so many opportunities that weren't afforded to generations before us. And, I, for one, am just thankful to have these opportunities and to be able to take part in such a wonderful sport with so many amazing people.
Yep, and as we are going through our qualifying results here, as we saw Lewis Archer on pole, Chris Byram in second, Lauren Tillsley in third. I kind of read down the list already for the rest of them. That is our top three. But we're going to hop over to our race info. And we are going to give you guys a rundown of what we are looking at for our race today. We have the Twin Ring Motegi, and we are in Motegi, Japan. 68 degrees Fahrenheit is our ambient weather, and 71 degrees track temp, which is going to be a really cool track to be driving on. It's going to give a lot of grip. 2.95 miles. That's quite the big track. As we see, the times are really high up in the bracket there. 35 laps is what we're going to go. 80% humidity, so that's a little high. It'll provide a little bit more moisture on the track and in the tires. But we are gridding up right now, and we are going to be going live and going green here in just a moment. So let's get prepared for that, Eli.
That's exciting. Here we go.
Right now we are 35 seconds into the race session. Once the minute mark hits, we will be popping those lights on unless everybody grids up before that. You see those wheels spinning. We are lights 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we are lights out, and away we go. We have our drivers. Ooh, some blocking going on up front by the Cuda Works team. We have Lewis Archer out front, Chris Byram in second, Lauren Tillsley third, and it looks like we are clean through the first corner. We are going down the second straight. Really close to each other here. Lauren Tillsley is going to be trying to make a move early and try and get as far away as she can. Lewis Archer starting, to pull ahead, and we have a little bit of a spin coming back on track with Rob Slider and Alex Chong, but looks like we are clean.
Yeah, it does look like everybody got away unscathed there. We're all back out on track and racing.
Yep, a little pirouette there from Rob Slider, maybe a little bit of contact, but off track and near the back, so we are continuing on. And we see all these intervals just within, a half second to a second right now. These cars are going to be able to stick right on each other's bumper with this really long straight track. And we just see the whole line of cars going up the hill. And Tillsley, she thinks better of making a move on Chris Byram. Got to get these tires up to temperature here.
That's right. They have to play it very safe these first few laps.
And just look at that. Look at that train going down. Not the pace car. Look at that train going back. Ooh, some wide cars off. Alex Chong again with Rob Slider there. Chong seems to be having some issues here. He's going fairly slow, losing a little bit of time. I'm not sure if there's a little bit of damage there. We'll hop back up to our race leaders here. Lewis Archer with Chris Byram and Lauren Tillsley right behind him. See a little bit of shifting of the positions here. Steve Bunting back to last, and Alex Chong pulling away from him.
Bunting has had an off track there, Alex. It looks like he's got back on track with minimal damage, if any.
And we see Archer's just pulling away slightly, and at this point, are there team tactics involved with, Archer and Byram being teammates? Is Byram going to hold Tillsley up? Is Archer going to try and get that gap away from Tillsley with a little help from his teammate? Or is Chris just trying to push and, catch up to Lewis himself? So wide on that last turn before the chicane. And then such an exit. That's what we mean by throwing it in. You see Lewis Archer coming way out on the exit because he has so much speed. Whereas even his teammate Chris Byram and Lauren Tillsley behind him, they're playing a little bit safer. They're not throwing it as wide and coming as far out on that curb.
Does look like Alex Chong is pitting now. He's got some pretty significant damage to his aero package, so he will be pitting.
Yep, let's take a look back at what happened with Chong and Slider. We see here Rob Slider goes and does a little pirouette. Chong has to go wide to avoid. And I don't think they touched, but I do think that Chong might have gotten a little bit of heated tires there, and close there, coming back on track, but keeping it clean. Hop back to live now, where we are seeing Lauren Tillsley pushing Chris Byram really quickly here. Rob Slider not waiting for anybody to get out of his way. He is taking it into his own hands here, and they touch! Rob Slider off track with Louis Cologne. That they definitely did touch there. Rob being a little behind from his mishap earlier, trying to make up some time, and just getting that little bit of a bump with Louis Cologne there is going to cost him.
Does look like Louis Cologne came away with a little bit of damage on that one. Slider may have escaped unscathed, or very close to it.
We have two groups right here that are right on top of each other. Actually, three groups now that Rob Slider is moving up. Lewis Cologne with that damage. Steve Bunting passes both of them. Cologne in the pits right now. But we have Grabowski right on the backside of Ivan Baukamp. Grabowski is pushing his sister team, the Cuda Evo car, pretty hard. We have the third Cuda team here in the white livery. Grabowski and Tillsley sitting in third and fifth. We have Baukamp and Thomas sitting fourth and sixth, and then the 1-2 pairing of Archer and Byram with the top tier Cuda Works team. And some beautiful cars from the Cuda garages here. So we jump ahead to Tillsley on Byram. Tillsley making up a little bit of space, but having to slow down on that exit. But let's see if she can make up that time going down that straight. She's right behind him. Ooh, she thinks better of it. Tillsley is going to hit that apex fairly late, and it's going to slingshot her right behind Chris Byram. She's staying right there with him. She thinks better of it again. She's trying to throw it in there, saying, "Hey, it's going to happen soon. Byram, I'm not going to let you go. You're not going to be able to block me from catching up to Archer there. So you might as well get used to me being right behind you here." Ooh, as we see Rob Slider jump to the pits. Not sure what happened there. We'll keep on these drivers for the moment, but we'll be ready to jump to what happened with Rob Slider there.
Does look like whatever happened with Slider, he was quick to get into the pit, probably got a tow right away.
Yep, looked like it was instant. Ooh, right there. That really slow section. And Tillsley hits the brakes a little bit more than I think she wanted to coming out of that hairpin. Down the back straight here, throwing it in. And out she goes to the boundary there. She doesn't go nearly as far out to that border as Byram and Archer have been going into that last corner before the chicane. And that could be costing her just the slightest bit of time. That entry angle being wider on the next turn really helps keep that speed up and make a significant impact coming out of the turn going down the front straight.
It's always interesting to me to see these Cuda cars just push each other. You have multiple teams here that are effectively under the same racing team umbrella, but they are so competitive with each other week after week. Alex, what do you think about that?
I mean, we kind of see it in the... Oh, and we see Byram have a little bit of a mishap, and Tillsley takes over that second place spot. But it's kind of like seeing the Red Bull and the AlphaTauri cars in... real life F1, it's the same. You have the like you said, that team umbrella, so to say, where they're both owned by Cuda, they're both owned by Red Bull, but they race each other hard. They're never going to say, yeah, I'm just going to get out of the way here. We see a little bit wide on Tillsley's exit, and Byram's going to try and jump on that. Only 2/10 behind her. That means his nose is going to be right on the bumper. Let's see if he makes a move. A little lockup. Tillsley hits the brakes a little harder than Byram was thinking. And you can see that interval from Tillsley to Archer going up because these two are battling right now, and it is costing them so much time. You see Lewis Archer a little bit farther every lap. You see how far forward he is now. And Ivan Baukamp and Steve Grabowski not really fighting each other, but they're catching up as well. They're getting closer and closer.
Well, that's right. This battle between Tillsley and Byram is just going strong. It's forcing her to come off her line to do everything, block Byram from getting by her, and that of course is holding her up, which is just, better and better for Archer. Here we see her go off her line, go wide, and Byram goes right by.
Yep, Byram jumping up to a 2.5 instantly past Tillsley, and just that one little mistake, that one little instance that can really cost you, and we see it there from Tillsley. And
yeah, I would even say that's a big mistake, and she's gonna really be kicking herself after the race, I bet.
Yep, and we have word from the pit lane here that Ben Bowman is out for this race. He has a technical issue. His pedals in his vehicle are a little unresponsive and messed up. So reports are Ben Bowman is out of the race. We're going to jump back to Rob Slider's crash that he is showing out as well. And he comes through that last chicane. It's such a high-speed chicane, loses his end there a little bit and turns it around. Can't get it going again, and he just resets there, jumps to the pits, and that is the end of his day. We saw Ben Bowman crash as well in that same instance right behind him. And this could be due to his pedals just not being responsive like they should. So, you hate to see it under a technical difficulty, somebody having to retire, somebody having a rough race because of it.
That's right.
But it does happen, just like real life, just like real cars. These pieces of machinery we drive with, these sim rigs, and the equipment that we use is very sensitive. So.
That's right, and that the pedals here use what's called a potentiometer or a Hall sensor. They are electronically driven, so if those sensors go out, you will lose throttle response, and that's, of course, then you will not be able to drive the car. It's the same in the real cars as it is in the sim, so that they're very similar, and even a small electronical issue like this can be a real race stopper for a driver.
Yep, and we, like you said, just like in real life, we have throttle cables and power units and turbos and internal combustion engines. I mean, we see it with the Mercedes team in real life right now with the Mercedes team using almost a record number of ICEs, and it's something that can really make or break a race car driver's race if their pedals aren't giving 100% output or an accurate output. It's almost like somebody's messing with your pedals and messing with your inputs. And we see Tillsley was losing a lot of time to Baukamp and Grabowski, so she's coming in on lap 9, and that will cause her to go long for the end of the race here.
Well, I have to say, Alex, it's nice to not see a safety car so far in this race, to see these drivers be able to keep going with their laps and their race and just not have the interruption. It's been a while since we've had a race go this far without a safety car.
Yep, correct. But the race is still got a long 25 laps left of the race, so you never know if we have a pretty big wreck. If these two, Ivan Baukamp, Steven Grabowski, get together, are stranded in the middle of the track, and you have Daniel Thomas and Shegetman coming up behind them, raging through the track, and don't see him, and it's a hazard. Yeah, it could happen. Same, with a back marker causing a wreck with another back marker, it could cause an obstruction in the middle of the track where a car can't even move. We're going to throw a yellow for that just because it's an obstruction. It's in the middle of the track. It could knock a race leader out completely. So we don't want to see that. Yellow would be unfortunate, but it's something that can happen.
Looks like Gutnick is off. He has gotten a tow to the track, or to the pits. Quite a significant spin. It looks like he did land in the wall too.
Yeah, coming out, this is such a high-speed chicane. If you lose the rear end coming out of here, you have into the grass, hits the gas a little too much, touches the wall. Not a whole lot of damage, but I mean, you can either try and spin it around and get around with that damage, or you can just get a tow to the pits here like he did. And that might be the end of his race. Depends on if he has a fast repair or if he's just going to wait for the repairs to be done as we jump back to Bowcamp and Grabowski. These drivers right on top of each other, and you don't really realize how close they really are. We're going to jump to the cockpit of Grabowski just so you guys can see how close and how high speed this stuff is going on. And once again, just love the sound of that engine as they're spooling up, and you know, we're about 0.4 to a half a second off right now, Grabowski from Bowcamp, but we get down to 0.2 to 0.1 seconds, which means Grabowski is right behind him.
Now, what do you think the distance? What is the interval that he needs to be at, or the gap he needs to be at, in order to make a really good passing attempt on the car in front?
So it needs to be a closing gap. So right here, he's hitting the brakes a little later than Ivan. He closes that gap down, and if he can keep the speed, that'll be the key thing. Keep the speed out of this last turn here. As you see, he's closing a tiny bit. If he can keep that speed out of the turn and get in that slipstream and do the same thing in this next turn, he might be able to catch up to Bowcamp. You see, he goes a little wider. He's going to get a little bit more throttle than Bowcamp does, but he pushes it a little too wide. He has to let off a tiny bit. He's not getting the jump that he wanted. Now you just sit and you do it all over again next lap and wait for it to happen down another straight and try and get a jump on him then. But you really need to time the acceleration. Like we see, he's getting close again within 0.2. He thinks about throwing it inside, but he thinks better because that means they're both going to wreck and slide off track, and a third and fourth place is a lot better than last place.
And so far we're seeing a really good drive from Grabowski here. I think this is a good day for him. He's had a lot of bad luck recently, so it looks like this race is going his way so far. He's still on track. He's competitive. He's right on Bowcamp's tail here. He might have a chance at a third place finish if he can keep it up and get himself past Bowcamp.
Yep, yeah, this is essentially for the last podium spot. As we see, this might be a pretty good jump for Grabowski. He gets a good exit and good apex, making that closing on Bowcamp. Can he make it stick? Ooh, he doesn't. He doesn't try and force the issue. He knows he's going to be able to attack in a couple laps, so he saves it.
Now, he could be waiting for an undercut as well. If he were to pit earlier than Bowcamp, get out, get in, get out, get back on track, he could actually potentially pull off an undercut with the distance they have between them right now.
Yep, very, very true. You can have it to where, Grabowski is just buying his time. He's just using that slipstream just to keep up with Bowcamp. And Grabowski's just waiting, till he hits his strategy pit time, and then he's just going to pit, get that undercut, and just run away with it. But we see Grabowski right there, right behind him. He's hungry. He's trying to stay behind him and just time his attack to be just right at the right time. You'll have that jump coming out of a corner, and for those who don't race, having that jump, what I'm referring to is just having more speed than the other guy coming out of the corner. And that could be, you take a corner a little bit wide, so then when you accelerate out of the corner, you have more speed than the other driver. It takes a little bit away on the front end, but with a track like the Twin Ring here, that will actually cause you to have a bigger jump and more speed down the front or down the stretch here. Which can make or break a passing maneuver. So you sacrifice on the front end to get a little bit more on the back end towards the end of a straight. So as we see, a little bit more wide here from Grabowski. A little bit wider from Grabowski again. He takes this curb about the same, and he is right there, same spot he normally is, 0.4, dropping it down to 0.3, and then we'll see him go a little wide here. See if he can't make this stick this time. And he will have a good run right behind Ivan Bowcamp. Let's see if he can get in front of him before our next hairpin here. He does not.
Ivan is young driver. I'm impressed. He's keeping his composure. Even given the amount of pressure that
Here we go.
Grabowski continues to put on him.
And they are almost side by side right there. As you see the switch, Grabowski has a little bit more speed because of this. Ooh, and Ivan closing him off a bit.
Great defense there.
Great defense by Ivan. Nothing too aggressive, keeping his line. Just taking a different line than Grabowski. And that just closes Grabowski off. Grabowski has nowhere to go because he is committed to a certain line. If you are in the middle of a turn and you try and change your line, that's going to change the whole dynamic of where you're going, where your car is pointed, and that is just a bad combination. You're either going to slide off track or lose tons of time. So just backing out just the tiniest bit, giving Ivan that room, it keeps you right there. And as we see, he's going to close a little bit more gap. He has a little bit later of a break, Grabowski does, than Bowcamp. And we are seeing Grabowski with a great exit here as opposed to Bowcamp. And this is going to set up not this turn, not the next turn, but that same spot that we see in turns 5 and 6.
Now, I did not see Grabowski activate his DRS on that front straight. That probably would have got him up there in passing range. Do you think he's out of DRS pushes at this point, or do you think he's saving him up?
If I was Grabowski, I'd be saving him up. I am well within the slipstream of Bowcamp. I'm not using nearly as much fuel, so that's another thing. When you're in the slipstream, ooh, here we go, Grabowski again, thinking about it.
He took a peek, didn't he?
He took a peek on the inside, but when you're in that slipstream, you're not using nearly as much fuel. The car in front is using more fuel to cut the air, so it doesn't just give you more speed, but it gives you less fuel consumption as well. And Grabowski is taking advantage of that. It's not going to be a ton. I mean, you're not looking at saving 5 gallons over the course of this race. You're looking at saving maybe a lap to 2 laps worth of fuel, but that allows you to go and stay out there for longer, and it allows you to really take advantage. As we see Grabowski go way wide, he's going to get a big jump down the straight. He's taking off tenths of a second at a time, or hundredths of a second at a time, and he's going to get right back there with Bowcamp, but he's going to have more speed here. He closes that gap back down. Ooh, a little bit too wide, a little bit too much speed. And we don't only have Grabowski and Bowcamp on the track, even though all the excitement is right here. We're going to jump to Lauren Tillsley, who's trying to make a move on Cristiano Schegetman down that same straight we just saw Bowcamp and Grabowski on. And we can see Tillsley does not want to get stuck behind a car in the middle of the pack here like Schegetman, because that means Lewis Archer has more time out in front, away from all the cars, to run his pace and run his lap. And we see Grabowski has dropped back to about 9/10 of a second. And Tillsley throwing it on the inside a little bit, but can't make it stick. She's going to have a little bit harder of an exit here, whereas Schegetman has that little extra speed to keep him out in front. Still about a half a second in front of Tillsley. But Tillsley, great entry into this turn, which now they accelerate out of turn 4 here, and this will give Tillsley a good run down to the 90-degree right-hander, and she thinks about it, takes a peek, just like we saw Grabowski on Bowcamp. And she's going to have a good slipstream coming up the slight right-hander, and then the harder left-hander here. Man, these drivers are really pushing each other without, pushing past that limit. I think this far in the season, they have really found a good limit and a good balance between knowing what drivers are going to push you, what drivers are going to, really have a hard time. As we see a switch going on, Cristiano on the outside, Tillsley. Let's see if she can get to the inside and make a move here. She's got quite the run on him. Actually, she's losing a tiny bit of time. Maybe she's setting up for this straight.
She is. Now, interestingly, with Tillsley, she did pit early. Do you think that was an early actual pit where she's fueling up? I don't see a lot of damage on her car when she was entering So I'm just wondering if that was an early pit, if that's part of a strategy, or if it was something that she was forced into.
So when we saw her go off the track with Chris Byram right behind her, a big thing on this track, being such a fast track and having so many straights, is the underside of that car. iRacing simulates every part of this car being damaged, and the floorboard of the car is something that we see get damaged in real life. And what that causes is an aerodynamic imperfection. What happens is there's just that little bit more drag underneath the car, whereas the car should be pulling towards the track and getting more and more grip. It's actually causing that grip to loosen up, and you lose tons of time down the straight. You lose time in your corners. And Tillsley trying to go on the outside. Cristiano saying, no, not today. You're going to have to try a little bit harder than that. And she is going to keep fighting here, and they do the crossover, and Tillsley has it. Can Cristiano Schegetman push back? He's got that little bit more of a head lead, and he's going to take the inside line. She's going to go wide, almost touch the grass, and Schegetman back in front, but we have Tillsley pushing right behind him.
Oh, she is right on his tail. Oh, there she goes inside.
And Schegetman throwing it around a bit. Both these drivers getting really aggressive here. Schegetman does not want Tillsley to pass him.
Well, we know she's got pace. If she gets out in front of him, is he going to be able to catch her? That's the question. And if she has field already, that's going to be enough of a push for her to maybe get her up a little bit further in the rankings.
Yep, and here she goes. Schegetman on the inside, throwing it in. And she's going to have that run out of this turn 4, or turn 2, going into 3 and 4. She should have the advantage coming out of 3 and 4. You see she has that little bit more speed. She's in the slipstream. Only 0.2 of a second, not even. And she's going to throw it inside. Let's see. Nope, she thinks better of it. This is a hard turn to pass on. And she has much better spot to pass coming up here after this right-hander. She'll be in the slipstream. She'll come down to the same spot we saw her pass before, which was the hairpin. When we see it says Lewis Archer had come off track slightly.
Looks like that was a pit lane entry.
Yep, looks like it. Lewis Archer in the pit lane. Cristiano Schegetman still holding off Tillsley. What a battle we have here. And Schegetman, ooh, so close there. Tillsley gets the jump, and she's trying to break the toe. Schegetman side by side with Tillsley. She jumps. They're just switching. I think they're just messing with us now. Ooh, Schegetman and Tillsley, did they touch?
Yeah, it looks like some wheel touching there to me, Alex. Very exciting stuff.
And Tillsley, we saw, was right up there with Chris Byram and Lewis Archer, trying to fight for that win, that second place. And wow, side by side again, way on the inside, kicking up some of those marbles and some of that dust. Tillsley with the better exit, but Schegetman putting up a good defense on the inside. Let's see who comes out of it. Ooh, Schegetman, just a tiny bit of a touch. Great side-by-side racing here from these two. And now Tillsley will have the inside. This has been going on for, what, 3-4 laps?
That's right. That's right.
And Schegetman just makes the tiniest mistake, hitting a little bit of the grass there, and you can see just how much that one little mistake has put him back. 1.3 going up to closer to 1.4 seconds. We'll see if he can catch back up to Tillsley, but like we said before, Tillsley has already pit early on, and we're on lap 19 of 35, so she's getting to that middle range on where her fuel is able to carry her. Do you think she pit too early and isn't going to be able to make it to the end, or do you think she's going to have enough?
She might be able to make it to the end on her fuel load. The thing I would worry about at this point is, will her tires last? Now, she's been in his tow for a significant portion of the race, lap after lap here, fighting and battling. That's going to take a toll on those tires as the grip levels are down from that dirty air following so closely behind his car. So, I mean, I would be thinking almost she's going to be in tire management mode as well as fuel management mode. But it does give her a really significant advantage if she can manage those things. She could really end up on the podium again, and that could have been an extremely good strategic move, even though it was probably necessitated by some tray damage. And like you said, that under tray is very, very important to maintain the aero downforce of these cars and ultimately the grip.
I think we have seen Tillsley Crash. Let's see what happened here. Ooh, she goes around, spins, pirouettes, tries to get going again. Ooh, back on the track. Just misses Cristiano Schegemann, and she tows to the pits. Maybe she had a little bit of damage there. Not sure why she would tow. Even if she doesn't finish on the podium, she still had quite the lead on a lot of these drivers here.
Well, that's right. And that tow is going to cost her probably upwards of 2 minutes of time. That's quite significant in a race like this. That's a full lap. That will put her back significantly.
Yeah, if she is jumping back into it, she might have, needed to stop in the pits anyway and figured, hey, that I'm just going to tow back instead of trying to get going again. But we know, our audience doesn't know, but we know Chris Byron with a big slowdown there. The ability to get back to the pits, even if you're a little slower than normal, will save you tons of time rather than a tow. A tow is gonna just kill your time, so it really makes a difference when you can say, hey, I'm gonna even limp the car back if I have damage and then get repaired and get going again. It saves you so much time.
Now, we've seen a few of our top 5 coming in for their pit stops now. We've seen Archer, also Thomas just came in. So this is going to be the key portion of the race here. This will really show anyone that did pit early what that strategy is going to do for them, if it will work out.
Yep, and we're hearing from sources saying that Lauren Tillsley is out of the race.
Oh, well, that's bad news for her. She's really had a good run the last couple races.
Yep, been fighting with Lewis Archer week in and week out, along with Chris Byram and Ivan Baukamp up front. So, shame to see that she is not going to be finishing the race, but you never know what happens. She could have had some technical difficulties there, hence the spin out. But we'll be looking forward to her racing next week as well. So sorry to see you, Lauren, when you watch it back. See you have to retire, but we will see you next week as we are watching Chris Byram trying to close the gap and pass Alex Chong, who's sitting in 8th place right now. But Byram has not pit yet. I believe Chong has.
You are correct. Byram has not pitted at this point in the race.
Yep, we can pop up our number of pit stops here and see who has stopped. Byram has not stopped, and Grabowski has not stopped. We see Baukamp trying to perform the undercut on Grabowski. I think Grabowski and Baukamp being so close in time, Ivan figured he would try and get the undercut on the person who was chasing him and just get that little bit more of a gap, that little bit more of a boundary between himself and Grabowski.
That's right. And he is well within that window to make that undercut work for him. If Grabowski were to stop for his pit, he's probably going to be out maybe 38, 39 seconds, something like that, potentially a little bit longer. That'd be just enough time for Baukamp to get by him and make it a race for that podium.
Yep, yeah, and we see, Byram, Grabowski, and Baukamp all pushing, and Archer, closing a little bit of time. Not tons of time, but he's making up, precious tenths of a second each lap behind Baukamp and Grabowski. And we see Grabowski coming into the pits here. Let's see if Baukamp is going to have a big undercut like he was planning. And you see Schegemann or Cologne there coming out of the pits. I believe that is Schegemann. And we have Baukamp coming down the straight here, making up tons of time. And wow, Grabowski gets out in front of Baukamp by about a full second and a quarter, but Bowcamp has those worn-in tires, and Grabowski's going to have to get those up to speed and heat it up really quickly. You're going to see a lot more grip out of Bowcamp as opposed to Grabowski.
You know, it looks like that undercut worked out pretty well for Ivan. It got him right back up there in competition space with Grabowski. And I think that's probably exactly what we was looking for, is to get right back up there in the podium spots and be back in this competition.
Yep, and another big one's going to be Byram. Byram is 36.8 seconds out in front of Grabowski. The total gap to him and Lewis right now sits at 59 seconds from the leader, is Lewis Archer. So Lewis Archer is going to have to make up some ground. We have Grabowski and Bowcamp both, way ahead of Lewis Archer. I just wonder what happened to Lewis Archer that he is 59 seconds back from Byram, because even with a botched, pit stop from Byram, Archer would still be, 30 seconds behind. These pit stops aren't that long of a pit. So I wonder what happened with Archer. Maybe he had a penalty coming into the pit lane, but I just don't see it in our race logs as to what happened to Lewis Archer.
Well, I can tell you too, his pit stop was rather long compared to some of the other drivers here. He spent a significant amount of time over and above what they did in that pit, and he did have a small off track here previously, so that might have just put him behind.
Yep, as we are looking back, take a check on to entering the pits here for Lewis. We'll speed this up.
Now, I kind of wonder, he did have that little bit of an off track going into the pits. Do you think that caused him to need to do a stop and hold or something?
It looks like, so we're in fast forward mode here for Lewis. It looks like he has been either A, penalized for off tracks, or B, penalized for entering the pits at too high of a speed, and probably got himself a 40-second penalty. And off he goes. So he had some sort of penalty there. His pit stop wasn't the thing. It was the penalty that got him. Not sure what it was that caused him to get that penalty. We'll have to take a look back at that and see if we can't figure out what caused it. But that gives his teammate, Chris Byram, the undeniable lead. Even if Chris stops, our pit stops are averaging around 20 to 25 seconds. That still gives a 15-second gap to Grabowski and a 20-second gap to Bowcamp, which they'll be fighting for that second and third spot. Chris Byram, as long as he keeps his nose down and keeps everything, just going nice and easy, and make sure that he runs his race and doesn't concentrate on anybody else, avoids back markers, Chris could be looking at another win here.
Yeah, he's just showing his skill as a driver here. He's consistent. He's lapping. He's driving his own race, and I mean he's going to be the winner at this point in time. He's clearly dominating the field today.
Yep. Yeah. Any other things that happen on the track? A yellow that might cause some of these guys to bunch up and get a good finish here. But we're 24 laps in. Without a yellow, and these drivers are so spaced out. The only ones I could see causing a yellow would be Grabowski and Bowcamp. If they slid onto the track, into the middle of the track, and we see Byram coming into the pits, a little wide. Let's hop onto his gyro.
I wonder if he's going to take a penalty for that entry. This is a very difficult pin entry. We've seen this more than once today.
Yep, let's jump to him. While he does his pit entry here, coming in, hits the brakes, locks up a tiny bit, goes through. That is probably going to be a penalty for an unsafe pit entry.
I feel like that's the same thing that happened to Lewis Archer.
Yep,
we see both members of this race team happening.
Byram is sitting there serving his penalty. I bet you it is the same thing that happened to Archer. This just makes it a level playing field again, and Archer's going to be able to catch up. Grabowski takes the lead, Bowcamp in the second. Wow,
Well, that's
turn
the
of
event we
events.
were talking about, right? That was the event. So he had a clear lead on this race, on this field. He would have been first. Just that small mistake on that pit entry is completely taking that away. Now he's got to make it all up again.
Yep, let's see if Archer gets by. He does get by as well. And Byram is off to the races here. Let's see if he can catch on up to his teammate. What an unfortunate turn of events for Byram. He had the race win in the bag. And, just sometimes it's better to, just calm yourself down.
That's right. Bad break for him and Lewis. And we saw it. It's cost Byram now. It's really cost him dearly.
Yep, and Byram's going to have to push to try and catch up to his teammate. Archer, he is about 8 seconds behind, but now we have our third and fourth place battle. Since the first and second place teams both got a penalty, third and fourth is essentially our fight for first right now, which is Grabowski and Baukamp. So those fights that were going on earlier between these two really are going to matter at this point.
Yeah, I think we invoked the magic of the track again here, calling the race early, saying that Byron would win. I mean, of course, immediately thereafter he had his incident. So it just goes to show that the racing spirits are watching and listening.
Yep. Yeah, you have the commentator's curse, as they put it. It's just a crazy thing to think of. You mentioned it on stream, and somehow it tends to happen. As we see Grabowski getting by. Looks like Shegetman there. And Shegetman letting him by. Good courteous racing there from Shegetman. We saw, some really aggressive racing with him and Lauren Tillsley going back and forth. Some swerving while trying to pass. You have your one move for a block. Especially in the rules here, you have your one move for a block, but you can't be swerving back and forth and left and right. And stewards will go back and look at it just to make sure all of our passes and driving are clean, as we see him letting by Ivan Baukamp, and some background behind Shegetman and Baukamp. Baukamp has been a little bit of a mentor for Cristiano Shegetman. He has given him some great advice, I think helped out quite a bit in Shegetman's push for the F3 championship, and now up into the F2 championship here. But great to see that kind of, camaraderie and mentoring from a little bit older of a driver to a younger guy like Shegetman, who might need a little bit of guidance, might need a little bit of, help on to, what do I do in this situation? How do I keep a level head? How does this, how do I get to the end of a race that is so long like this one that we're doing now? I mean, we're 43 minutes into race time, and we still have about 15 to 20 minutes left of race time. All those things play into, the mental game, and having a mentor helping you out and giving you advice. You see it with, some of these guys in real F1 with Sebastian Vettel has kind of taken Mick Schumacher, not even on the same team, under his wing, both being German drivers. They have that little bit of camaraderie. Mick having Michael as his dad, it was huge for Sebastian Vettel to look up to Michael Schumacher. And now Sebastian Vettel is Mick Schumacher's role model and mentor. Same kind of thing developing even in an esports league like we see in iFormula with Baukamp and Shegetman. You have other relationships in this league, of mentor and student that really just make this league something else. It's not just about, who's fastest, jump on the track. There's tons of relationships being formed, and as I said, and we see, big improvements can be made from just having a little bit of a mentor.
That's absolutely right. I mean, this is a sport like any other, albeit an esport. It does require a significant amount of practice and training, and of course, having a good mentor, having a good coach, goes a long way to setting you on the right path to making the right moves on the track. Whether that is your driving methodology and philosophy, the strategy of performing a race stint, taking into account your pits, your tire performance, your fuel loads, or it can be a state of mind thing. How do you get through this long race? How do you deal with the pressure of having someone right on your tail trying to pass for lap after lap? All of these things can really benefit from the support of a more experienced driver and or driving coach, and we see in this relationship between Bowcamp and Shagutman the results of that, and it can be significant, especially over time as we're seeing these drivers develop over the course of seasons and season after season, from one series to another. With Shagutman moving from F3 to F2, of course, there's that learning curve of the new car, the new drivers on track, but also just a different level of racing at a much higher speed.
Yep, yeah, we love to see it. As we see a little bit of a battle here between Cologne and Thomas, we love to see those relationships form in the league, and really see some of these drivers grow the way that they have. A lot of young guys in the league, and a lot of drivers that are seasoned in iRacing and in the open wheel category as well. We see Lewis Archer is probably one of our biggest mentors with CUDA Racing, but not even just mentors. Ooh, and we see Cologne take a big jump on the inside, have a great acceleration out of the turn on Daniel Thomas, and Cologne takes fifth from Daniel. And let's see if Thomas
he did make it look easy too, didn't he?
Right, he just jumped right in ahead of him. Thomas might have had a little bit of a wide turn, but let's see if Thomas can fight back here. But yeah, those relationships, not even if it's mentor and student, even just making friendships here in this league, I myself am victim of it, making friends I didn't ever think I would make. So the dynamic of this league, we encourage anybody that's thinking about joining an open wheel league, come on out, join. We'll get you on the track and have you guys start racing with us here.
That's right. We do try to keep this a very positive environment for all to be involved, and of course want to share our love of motorsport and autosport racing with you. So please do join us.
Yep, and we have, like I said, a little bit of a gap forming now. Ooh, Daniel Thomas going off track just the slightest bit there. That's going to cost him probably at least a second worth of time on Cologne. And Cologne, one of our most consistent drivers every week. He's normally sitting, in that top 3, 4, 5 spot, and he is not closing the gap, but the gap is staying the same on Byram as of right now, with about a 7 1/4 to 7 1/2, depending on the part of the track. It is, and he has a little bit of a mishap there, going a little wide. And these drivers trying to use every inch of the track that they can. And Lewis just trying to use a little bit too much and taking a little bit of grass with his tires there. And we have something that not a lot of other leagues do. We also keep the marbles and the dirt and debris on track. So, you can kind of see that line starting to wear in there, that black asphalt line. And you can see on the track when the sun hits it right, you can see the line that everybody's taking, and the big advantage that you'll get if you stay in that line rather than going to where all those marbles are and where all the dust and debris is collecting. Because you see it in F1, you get into those marbles into a corner, it's like being in sand. You get into a braking zone, and you have to brake 50 meters earlier than you normally would, because it's like braking literally on marbles.
That's right. It's a bunch of little loose rubber bits, pebbles, sand, all that sort of debris that just is not connected to the track in any way, shape, or form. And it is slick as ice. Very similar to getting out on the grass. You just really got to watch it. Another point about this rubber buildup too is, if this were a wet track, if it were raining, these drivers would want to be off of that rubber line. They would want to be on the portion of the track that doesn't have that buildup. So that's just another example of how the dynamic of the track, the weather, the temperature, all of that builds up to really informing how the drivers are going to attack the line and attack the track lap after lap. And that can be changing and evolving as the course of the race moves on.
Yep, yeah, that's just a growing dynamic with the race, as we see Bowcamp making up a little bit of time in the past couple laps. You see our graphic on the bottom right. Bowcamp is going to be pushing here. He's only got 4 laps left to make up 4 seconds. If he had any DRS pushes in the tank, you know he's going to be using them down those front straights and the really long back straight down the hill as well. And we are getting a little bit of news saying that the marshals will be looking at some of Sheketman's driving in the in between of the next couple races, but you know, some defensive driving. You know, some say it's dirty, some say it's defensive. You know, we have our rules in the league that put a 1 maneuver per you know straight. What do you think about, you know, our passing techniques and our you know, rules for only being able to make 1 move down a straight, just like F1 guys, and then once you make that move, you have to commit to that move?
That's right. I mean, the reality is these cars are moving so fast, and you're on the edge of grip at all times, right? The drivers need to be really intentional about their moves, and that includes when they're defending. So that 1 move rule really takes into account making 1 move so that the driver behind knows what is happening. It decreases the amount of danger in making a passing move. Now, that being said, that 1 move can be right before that braking zone. It can be last minute. It still requires spur-of-the-moment decision-making on the part of the passing driver coming from behind. But if the leading driver is changing their line at the last minute, that can be very dangerous, requiring that passing driver to make a last minute change in their line. They might not have the grip to do it.
Yep, and we see Lewis Archer crashing, going under the tunnel and getting a little bit of nose damage. We'll see if he comes into the pits here. Nope, he continues on. His nose just touched the wall of the tunnel. But Lewis Archer now is going to have his teammate Chris Byram breathing down his neck. Unfortunate for Lewis, he just got a little bit too much grass on the exit of the last turn before the bridge. Very unfortunate for Lewis there, but he will.
Looks like his car is still controllable, at least, if not a little bit slowed down, but he does still seem to be able to manage it.
Yep, we're going to keep an eye on the interval between Archer and Byram, because that is for a podium right there. Byram coming up behind, you know, 4 seconds back. Can he push, you know, with a couple laps left here, 3 laps total left? Going to be down to 2 here in just a moment. But he's making up, you know, 0.3 of a second just in the last straight that he was down. Let's see what can happen here with the slightest bit of damage from Archer to Byram.
Well, that's right. Normally, earlier in the stint, Archer might want to pit here, but we're 2 laps out from the end of this race. There's no way he's taking this car into the pits to get this repaired, so he's going to ride it out and do everything he can to control this damaged car right to the end and see if he can take this podium from Byram.
Yep, and Byram seems to be staying about 4 seconds back. I figured he would be able to close that gap quite a bit, being right there. A little bit of damage there on the nose for Archer, but you know, Archer might be able to make it up in some other way.
I mean, I think you're seeing Archer's skill play out here. He's consistently been one of our most performant drivers. He's always right on the edge. He's always fast, and here we're seeing that skill come to play as he's nursing this injured car around the course and doing it at speed, keeping that gap between him and Byram. He may be able to pull this off.
Yep, a phenomenal drive there from Archer. Unfortunate that we saw such a slowdown and you know, shifting of the tides with the penalty that both Archer and Byram had to serve there, and it just goes to show that mental part of the game. You know, in the practice too. Did these guys practice their pit entry? You know,
That's a great question. That's a great question.
Sure that they did, but you know, add 30 something laps in, you know, they're not thinking, you know, on that exit of you know, turn 12. They're not thinking of the, you know, pit entry halfway through the race, because they're focused so much on, you know, that fast lap, trying to go and repeat that, and then you get into a lull sometimes. Some of these drivers have such mental capacity that they get into a lull. We see it in F1, where Max Verstappen has just got such a good mental capacity that he starts talking about strategy. And, you know, talks, you know, hey, what should we do with this strategy? What should we do here? What should we do there? And it's just phenomenal that some of these drivers have that capacity. On the other hand, you have the drivers that, you know, this is just such a strain on them that it's hard. I mean, it truly is hard to hold that, and really hold the mental, you know, focus to be able to say, yeah, I should be braking here on my pit entry, or yeah, I have to keep this pace up or that pace. You know, it really is just so much going on track to keep, you know, in perspective.
Well, that's right, and you know, this being an esport, this being nearly a one-person sport at times, especially for these individual drivers, they may actually be in their car in a black box setting their pit requirements, how much fuel they need, do they need tires, do they need a repair. They might be doing that on the way into their pit. As they're getting onto that exit lane, especially if they're having to make last-minute changes from something they may have set before the race started. So that can also take some of that attention away from the drive, and if you're right there at the pit entry, it's very easy to make a mistake on the way in, especially with a difficult pit entry like this one today.
Yep. Yeah, it's it throws you off because you have so much speed, and it's a straight, here you go, here's the entry, and then all of a sudden it you know, jolts you over to the right and then back to the left. So it can throw you off if you're not 100% prepared for it, and thinking, yep, I will be able to stop, and all of a sudden you're locking them up and just sliding right through, and you're still going to get into the pits, but now you have 40 seconds you have to wait. As we see, Grabowski is on his way down the final back straight here, and we are on our white flag lap, our last lap of the race, and Grabowski, as long as he gets through these last couple corners here, under the bridge, taking it wide, see if he can hold the last corner, comes through nice and easy, and he is going to take home the Twin Ring Motegi Grand Prix win. Checkered flag there. Ivan Baukamp coming in second. Great finish from Ivan, as we saw him have a not so great start on the last race. And we're going to see Lewis Archer coming across the line here in just a moment with his teammate Chris Byram in fourth. But Lewis Archer getting that last podium spot, Shegetman in seventh, Byram finishing in fourth. Great points for Lewis Archer and Chris Byram on the Kuda Works team, extending their lead in the F2 field. We have Cologne, once again, top 5 almost every week. Daniel Thomas in 6th. And Steve Bunting is our last driver to be coming across the line here in the chicane. Just going to take it easy, get to the end of the race. No need to push too hard with what we got.
That's right, and Archer's going to maintain his championship position. Again, this has been another good showing for him.
Yep,
all of our finishers today are going to be in the points as well. That's quite a thing, huh, Alex? They're all going to be getting points for their team. They're all taking home something.
Yep. Yeah, that's the purpose. I mean, this is a really long season, 18 race season. You know, and it might not seem like it, but we have in our F3 championship, you know, a handful of points separating teams for that first place. So great racing from these drivers today, as we see Lewis having a little bit of fun here after the race. But let's see if we can't get these guys in here for a little bit of interview action. And what else do you got for this race here, Ivan or Eli?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a great race today. I'm really excited to see Grabowski come across in first. He, like I said earlier, he's had a lot of really bad luck over the course of the series, especially over the last few races. So it's nice to see him have some good luck for once and just get a really good drive. And I think we see it again here from Archer. Just another fantastic performance, knocking it out even with an injured car. And, Bowcamp, too, another solid drive from him. Week after week, these guys put in great performances. A little bit sad to see Tillsley out so early. She's been performing fantastically well the last few races, is becoming a real competitor. And I would think next season she will be a real contender for the championship.
Yep, yeah, I definitely think that Tillsley will be pushing for the championship up against the likes of Lewis Archer and Ivan Bowcamp and Chris Byram. These drivers are always prone to switching around in the off season and switching to another team in the off season, or starting a team of their own, which we love to see, the expansion of these drivers into their own teams. It's great to see. So we will look forward to next season as well, seeing a great performance out of Lauren, race in and race out. This is really, I think, her only really result that didn't end up in a large amount of points for her. So unfortunate to see, but we will see her out in the next season. But let's try and bring in once again our race results here and get some interviews going.
Looks like we have Bowcamp waiting here, our second place finisher.
Yep, we'll bring Ivan in. Actually, we have Lewis in first. He's our third place finisher, just popped in. So let's grab on to Lewis. Lewis Archer, how are you feeling after that race?
Most frustrating podium I have ever had, ever in my whole life. Ever in the whole 42 seconds penalty for cutting a smeagely little bit of track.
Yep.
Didn't mean to do it, and it was my mistake, but at 42 seconds, what a penalty.
Yep, yeah, we see that 40-second penalty for any unsafe pit entry, and your car must have been just a tiny bit off track. Walk us through what that does to you mentally there.
Right, if anyone's watching this, right, and they want to learn from my mistakes, don't do what I just did, because I had that in the bag, okay? I had the pace to do that. I pulled it, and I the perfect start. I just drove off all the way, and then I realised upon, first stop, that was the first time that I was to come into that pit under speed, and I thought, yeah, it's there. And by the time I'd seen the fact that it goes right left, it was far too late. And then I thought, whoa, I'm going to get it stopped up before the cones, which I did. But, it had already penalised me for going over that little island there. So, yeah, totally my mistake. That is how it should be. You make a small mistake like that, and then you don't win the race.
Yep.
That's it.
And that's a huge thing we were talking about during the broadcast. So we were saying, I wonder if, Lewis or, because your teammate, Chris Byram, same thing. Did the same thing. He drove right over the middle island. And we were asking ourselves, did they practice the pit entry? During the week. We throwing down laps is one thing, and you can throw down 500 laps during the week, but in any of those laps, did any of these drivers practice the pit lanes? And we'd seen that Lauren, we got word that she had practiced the pit lane entry extensively. We saw some of the drivers in warm-up doing it. But yeah, it's a completely different thing when you're racing and you got, lap times on your mind. And then all of a sudden you go into the pits and, oh no, it jogs to the right. You didn't know that at all. And you're in a situation where it's like, uh-oh, I didn't prepare for this, and then coming out of that, what does it do mentally for you going forward?
That's it. I mean, that scenario can happen to you at several points in the race. I mean, you can, if I was in P3 or something and then I made that same mistake, dropped a few places and then made my way back up to P3, but there it is, because it was for the win. You you don't get to make a mistake and still win. That would have been crazy. 42 seconds was insane. But yeah, I mean, I usually do as well. So for all of these rounds, we had 12 rounds, 12 rounds before this round. And I do always at least, fire it in and out the pit lane just a couple of times to get my bearings on the difficulty, just to see. And it just slipped my mind this week. I did plenty of laps practice. I did a different pull away this week than I usually do, and that worked really well. And and I obviously had that spin late on in the race as well. I was just pushing really, 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 really hard. It was unlikely that I was going to catch up, but I thought if they make a mistake, they have to make a much smaller mistake for me to be able to catch them if I've applied all that pressure. But no, not my day today. And I'm glad Grabowski's won, because that's he hasn't won since Zandvoort. What was that, round 4? So that is a long time coming, that one. He's had a few really bad races and disconnects. So it's good to see him up there, and Ivan as well with a good result. But overall, I guess I got to shut up and be happy with the podium, really, because I thought that was well off the cards with the 42. I thought that was my day over.
Yep, and you definitely would have been off the podium if your teammate hadn't done the same mistake that you did.
The exactly same thing.
Chris Byram, firing right through that little jog to the right. So maybe.
I literally, by the sounds of it, I did exactly the same thing he did. I just went straight over it.
Yep. Yeah, and we went back and watched his. We were stunned to see, because up in the booth we didn't get word of a penalty. So we were stunned to see when he came out of the pits, and Steven Grabowski and Ivan Bouwkamp, they're done with their pit stop and you're 20, 30 seconds behind. We were kind of blown away with it, and just were kind of wondering, scratching our heads, saying, hey, what happened?
It was the first time that had happened in the race. So you did, yeah. I honestly absolutely had that. Up until that point, I was controlling the pace. I could have gone faster. I could have saved more. I really just had that. I was under no emotional pressure whatsoever. I didn't feel it was all just nice, zoned in, tunnel lap after lap after lap. And that just really rumbled me. And actually, I picked up the pace after that mistake to try to recover. But I just knew there's just 42 seconds. It's just ridiculous. It's just so much time to lose in the middle of the race. It's like half a lap.
Yep. But any shout-outs that you have to give out this week, Lou?
Yeah, well done to the guys up in the booth. That's really what sets this apart from a standard bunch of guys meeting up online and having an F3 race, putting that routine in place and having that those mega displays, and you commit your time, we commit our time and all that, even though you're not racing tonight, and it's good. It's a really, really good thing. Viva la IFL and long live.
Thanks, Lewis. It's exciting to watch you race week over week, and like all the guys and gals that came out today to do this racing, we just see week over week everybody getting better, having fun, really pushing each other, and having some really, really good battles. And I think your race was the same today. Just some really excellent stuff out there. It's fun to watch.
Dicey day. I'll let you get on to Ivan, because I know he's a lot happier than I am.
Yep. Thanks, Lou. We will see you next week.
Catch you next week, guys.
All right, let's bring in Ivan Bouwkamp. Ivan, how are you feeling after that race?
Yeah, great. I'm speechless. It's I had some bad luck the last races, but today luck was on my side, and it feels great. I didn't expect this. I didn't see this coming today. Really, I'll be honest.
Yep. Yeah, you drove great. Some great battling there with Grabowski. He was pushing you from behind. You were pushing him there for a little bit from behind after the pit stops. Were you expecting, after all the pit stops were all said and done, for you guys to be out in front of Lewis and in front of Chris?
No, not at all. And I think what they do wrong is this pit entry is a bit confusing, because I did it in a practice, and you have the pit entry, but you also have a road to a different part of the track. So I was practicing today, and I thought, okay, let's do the pit stop after 20 laps, and I wanted to take it, and I took a different road, and I came on the other track. So I thought, okay, let's do this 5 more times, and there's a little chicane in that pit entry. And if you go too fast over that chicane, you get a penalty. So I think they get a penalty and a black flag in the pit. I'm not
Yep.
sure, but that's what I think.
Yep, yeah, we saw Chris Byram do it live. We saw Lewis Archer come out of the pits after that 42-second penalty. So both of those drivers had that 42-second penalty, which just gave you guys the wide open door to fight it out for the win. And you and Steve Grabowski had a great drive, both of you guys. But what were you trying to do to try and close that gap there at the end? Did you have DRS pushes left, or were you just trying to push your car as far as it'll go?
Well, my DRS was soon before my pit stop. After my pit stop, I had 2 more left, and I knew the battle with Steven was second. Sometimes I gained a little bit, but he came back, and he was on my tail the whole full race. And I was like, okay, this guy needs to stop first. But my fuel was done, and I had to stop in that lap. I think he carried more fuel than me, and I knew. I have an out lap with cold tires, and I knew he was going to be ahead of me, and it was like 2 seconds, and yeah, that's why I lost the slipstream. And at that moment I saw that I was ahead of Lewis, and I think Chris still needed, like, okay, I'm already on the podium. There's no danger behind me in the championship. I can do 2 things, or I go on pushing. I'm not sure if I have off track, but I was like, better stay clean and watch Lewis behind me, because Lewis was gaining in the last laps. But I was like, okay, you're pushing really hard, you're gonna wreck. And that's exactly what happened. And I didn't care much about Steven, because he's not a danger for me in the championship. Of course, I wanted to win, but yeah, he was so quick today. It was the same pace. I really had to fight for it. And it could end in the wall, or worse than a P2. So
Yep,
yeah, that's what I did.
great consistent drive, and like you said, just not making those mistakes really helps out. That pit entry, practicing that pit entry during the week, just that little thing, jumped you probably from being behind Lewis and Chris when they come out of their pits to being on the podium and having a P2. So great job, having that mental awareness of the pit entry, and great drive. You guys had some great pace up front. You and Steve Grabowski both fighting each other. It was entertaining to watch while you guys were right on top of each other. It was a shame that you lost the slipstream there, but it really proves how important that slipstream is to have.
Yeah, exactly, because I also had no DRS left. 2 more, but it wasn't enough to get back in the slipstream. And yeah, I wasn't really pushing for it anymore at some point, because I knew the podium was secured. And in the beginning, my fight was with Steven, because Lauren was in the race, Chris was in the race, and Lewis was in the race, and they had a great race. And yeah, it started with Lauren. She had some bad luck, floor damage. Had to do an early stop. I know you come behind traffic, and it's annoying, and it's hard to don't lose time against the drivers where you're battling with in the front. And yeah, she quit. I don't know. I'm not sure what happened. And then Lewis and Chris had it in the pit. So I was like, nobody can steal this from me, the podium. I can only ruin it for myself, So I thought Steven is not a danger, and I think I did the right thing. And the championship is over for me and Chris again, because he was 12 points ahead of me, and I closed the gap again. So I'm happy with that.
Yep, great race. We're gonna get on out of here now. Any shout outs that you have to give for the league or for teammates or whatever?
Yeah, I want to thank the team, anybody in the team. I want to thank for every help, and if they did. And I want to thank Jeroen, if he's watching, and especially the team and the IFL, the sponsors, everything. It's a great league, and I enjoy it.
All right,
and I'll see you back next time.
Yep. All right, Ivan. Thank you very much for such an entertaining race. We will see you next week, where we are at Suzuka. Any plans going into Suzuka?
Yeah, P1.
P1. Well, then we'll be talking.
We wish you luck, Ivan.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yep. All right, and it looks like our race winner Steve Grabowski is not able to do an interview, but we will say great shout out to Steve Grabowski. Great race, great pace, and very consistent, very knowledgeable of the track. So good job, Steve. We recognize you had a great drive today, and a little bit of luck with Lewis and Chris having their mishaps in the pit. Otherwise, you might have had a little bit more fighting to do at the end. But great race, very entertaining, great clean driving between you and Ivan. So when you watch it back, great job. Anything that you want to add before we are out of here, Eli?
Well, Alex, I just want to say thanks for joining me in the broadcast booth today. It's been another fun time watching these excellent drivers turn laps on another interesting course, and I think we had some really exciting action today. I can't wait for the next one and join you back here to give our audience more commentation on what's happening on track.
Yep, yeah, same thing. Some great entertaining racing from these guys. So we thank the drivers, we thank the admin team, and we thank all of the IFL as a whole. Big shout out to our sponsors, Butt Kicker, who supply us with great prizes, Gamer 2s at the end of the season. Designs Limited, they are going to be giving us some apparel at the end of the season. Majors Garage, which gives us a subscription to give out to one of our drivers who will be lucky enough to get that. And automotonews.gr, who help cover our races. Thank you to all the sponsors and to all the drivers. Once again, you guys are the thing that drives this league and makes everything happen, and that's why all the admin guys show up every day and do what we do. So thank you to everybody. Thank you, Eli, for covering the races with me. Until next time, we will see you guys in Suzuka.
All right, stay fast.